Hey, it's Bob with Proscapes, and today we are making some brine. Here's the pump that runs the rig outside, and we're on a well system, so we make more brine than our well can actually keep up with. So behind there's a big freshwater tank. That's where this line comes from. But this pump basically runs the show, and we're making a batch outside. This is all of our storage tanks, so they're all full right now. We use the bottom one for pre-wet, and we'll show you that later. All the salt that comes off of our trucks gets pre-wet, so it gets sprayed with 23.3% brine solution and then a small amount of calcium. That's what's in here. The calcium amount varies depending on what the temperature is. The colder it is, slightly more calcium gets put in. That is to allow it to melt in colder temperatures and then break through thicker ice too. So this is the pre-wet tank. That's dyed blue, so we know the difference. And then the 3 tanks behind are more brine. These are all the valves that control everything, and this is the switch that controls the pump. So we started doing brine about, I want to say 5 years ago now, and it's allowed us to reduce our salt usage by about a third. It's about 33%, almost on the head actually. So especially on pre-wetting. So for applications, we mostly do pre-treatment. So we'll go out when the relative humidity is low enough so the water evaporates off and leaves the brine behind. So we'll do that during the day before an event happens, and then you might not even have to go out at night because if it's a small enough amount of snow, it's just going to melt it off. We we made our tanks basically off of some old DOT tanks. So that's what a Department of Transportation used to use. We just adapted it to kind of fit our needs. So we pump the fresh water in over there. It pumps up over the door and then goes to the inside of the tank. You put the salt in at the top and then you just keep cycling. So it just forces the water through the water through the salt. Turn that off so we can hear. But this batch hasn't been going very long, so it won't be at 23.3 yet, but that's what we shoot for, is 23.3%. This is probably close, which is surprising because it's not that cold out. There we go. Sometimes the initial one is just too cold. So 21.3%. So we got 2% to go. So I'm actually going to let this sit off so it doesn't go over. If we go over, then we have to pump more fresh water in. So going higher does not increase the benefit, just like putting more salt down doesn't actually help you any. So let's take a look at what the trucks look like. So we pre-wet all of the rock salt, the bulk salt for parking lots that comes off the trucks. And that is back here. So that's the brine tank, and these are all the filters. This is at the end of the night. We fill it with antifreeze, with RV antifreeze, so the lines don't freeze and all the heads don't clog. But as the salt comes off the hopper, there's little nozzles right here, and it sprays the salt as it comes out. So we can use about a third less salt that way, and it actually cuts through. So our lots for clients are down to pavement much faster. And then once the snow is gone, there's nothing left. There shouldn't be any piles of salt left on a lot after you've melted it off. On the smaller rigs, like this one, you can see this is where the pump sits. That's the fill line for the RV antifreeze to come in, and then here's the heads. So as it spins off the hopper, the heads spray it, and the tank is up front on this one. This is the fill line, and that's the tank there. So you can see it's dyed blue because that has that's our mix with a little bit of calcium in it. Usually only 5% unless it gets really cold. Then we'll up that a little bit. As far as sidewalks go, we use the Boss, and that has a tank on it back here. Pretty dirty at the moment because we hadn't even had to use it this year yet. But that's the tank there, and this has a drop spreader. So the drop spreader's on the front, and then the sprayer is underneath. So that's not a pre-wet system. It just drops the salt directly down, so you're not going wider than the sidewalk like a broadcast will, and you'll throw a bunch of salt all over the lawn, which doesn't help anyways. Madison's obviously an isthmus, and all the drains drain to the lake, so the less salt we put down, the less salt gets loaded into the lakes because it doesn't disappear once you put it down. Then there's a wand too, so if you want to hand spray some areas like steps, then they can just pull up to the steps and then brine the steps. We use Pro Slicer for our sidewalk salt. Sidewalk salt goes a lot longer, a lot further than what most people do. I mean, you should be able to either drop spread or chicken feed, but one fistful of salt that you spread out should really go 10 squares of sidewalk, and that should be plenty in most events, especially if it's post. I mean, historically, we used to wait for the snow to stop. So you would have let's say we had a 7-inch storm. Well, you'd wait until it was 6 inches, and then the bill for that customer would be a 3 to 6 inch. Now we'll go out twice. So the sooner you go out, the less salt you have to use, especially for sidewalks. I mean, if you shovel off what's there, rather than having it melt and turn to slush, or putting enough salt down that it actually eats all the slush up too. But that's just a waste. It's a waste of product, and it's not beneficial to the customer, to the concrete itself. The salt destroys the concrete. So the less salt we can use in general, but still accomplish the safety for the customer, the better off we are. We'll use sodium unless the temperature gets low enough, and then we'll switch sidewalks to magnesium. So that works to about 5 below, I believe. After that, it's all manual. We do a lot more chipping too. I mean, if there's a bad enough ice storm, we'll go out and chip the ice out and remove it manually. So whatever you can get done with by hand or by mechanical removal before you're salting, the better off you are. That's our bulk salt storage. Normally this time of year, we'd have those completely full. It's not as much of an emergency to have so much salt on hand now that we have other options. It's a total of, I believe, 3,000 tons less salt that we're using annually. This is affectionately called Rebecca. This is what we do the brine deliveries in, so that does not have a boom sprayer or anything. It's just a tank, so we can fill other companies. So we sell the brine, they can either come here and pick it up, or we deliver it. This is Tank. That's not Tank, that's Denise. Where is Tank? This is Tank. This is what we brine with. We just took an old truck and retrofitted it. It is scheduled for replacement, but it works pretty well. So the cost of entry into doing this doesn't have to be astronomical. You don't have to buy a brand new truck and, you know, ridiculous amounts of money on a sprayer. It's all ag equipment basically with a pump. So it's got some plastic balls in there so it doesn't slosh back and forth. You lose a little bit of volume that way, but then the truck's not quite as jerky. We just have the solenoids here so you can control it all from the front. We can control the wings on the sides. Those will go out 5-6 feet. We only use those on empty lots when we're pre-treating. We can change the tips out. So this is a pre-treat tip and this is a post-treat tip. So you would turn the dial. So this is if the snow has not happened yet and the relative humidity is low enough, and you check ground temperature and air temperature and kind of do your application at the right time. This is a heavier nozzle that would be after you've plowed for a post-treatment. Underneath here, it's kind of hard to see, but along that whole line, those are all the sprayers that drop it down. Those also get switched out. Just the caps get switched for pre and post-treat because it's a different amount of volume that's coming out. And then again, it's just an ag reader. So this will tell us what our batch rate is, how much we put down. So we just zero it before each one. So the last time out, they used 486 gallons. So it'll tell us what our flow rate is. That reads up in front too. That's our brine operations. If you're a property manager or a property owner and you're interested in brine, or if you're a contractor and you want to purchase some, give us a call at the office or take a look at our website at proscapesllc.com.